Hello everyone, this is a short demonstration to showcase the payroll functions of StoreApp. So this begins under HR and go to Payroll, and you can see all the functions that are related to payroll, So it starts from this payroll staff, and this is the list of staff that are under your payroll. Now, the fact that you have somebody registered as a member of your staff, that is normally when you go to HR and staff, does not mean they automatically come under payroll staff. Those payroll staff allow you to be able to define additional information that is needed for the payroll function. So what that means is that for our customers who don't have the payroll function, they can just register their staff with the basic information, So you can just register their staff with the basic information and that's it, But then when you want to use the payroll function, there are some additional information that you need to add, which now comes under payroll staff. That is why we have payroll staff. So when you want to start using the payroll, you normally start from here. That's the setup, a payroll profile for all your staff. So if I double click now, you see that we have a couple of information here. We have a selected staff which has all the details that you've registered for them under the staff list, and then you can have additional information like attendance group, account number. If you need to generate a payment advice at the end of the day, when you complete the payroll, you want to be able to generate a payment advice to bank to execute on your behalf. You can set this up, and then you can also add other allowances and deductions to their profile. So once this is created, then the staff can appear on that payroll. Then you can, you'll be able to compute your monthly payroll and those staffs will show up, So now some of these things are information that I want to go to where all of this are set up first of all, because when you're setting up a staff here, you can see that you need to select an attendance group. And what attendance group means is just a kind of a staff group, but what distinguish different groups is their resumption time, their work patterns, things like that. That is what differentiates the group, and then all of this bank information. So let me start from where this information is set up, and then I'll come back to registering a payroll staff. So if you go under HR and under payroll, you see the list of banks. So this is the place where the bank is set up. And then if you wish to add a bank, you can just click the add button, enter a bank code like we have here with this one. So you can see GKB and the name of the bank, and then you click on submit, and you can update the bank at any point in time. Don't forget, the essence of this bank is just for you to be able to. So if you had a list of staff and you have so many staff, and you want your bank to be able to execute this payroll. So for instance, maybe you compel your staff to register an account or with this bank, so that you can generate a kind of a payment advice to the bank, and then the bank can execute the payroll for you. Just sometimes the number of staff that you have might be a lot, and then it might be difficult for you to manually make payments into their separate accounts. You might need to use a service from the bank, to help you with the payment of the payroll, and that's the reason why we have this bank set up. This bank is not connected to the bank accounts that we have normally on the accounts, but then you see where we tie them together eventually when the payroll is finalized, So this is where you set up the bank. On that payroll as well, you can see the next thing is the attendance group. And for the attendance group, this now allow you to set up different groups within your payroll staff, which are separated, like I said earlier, based on the work patterns. So if I'm adding a new group, I would add a description for the group. Maybe let me just say sample group, So sample group. So you find your grace minute. So grace minute just means that when they come in late, how much of grace should the system give to them, So it can define 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So that means that before the system start calculating deductions for lateness, you will consider these minutes of grace, before start making deductions. And then you can see number of weekends. So if they work on weekends, how many Saturdays in the month do they work? How many Sundays do they work? So there are some businesses that are open every day of the week. So probably we'll just select 4. 4 means that all Saturdays, all Sundays. There are some businesses where, we give them some time off or weekends, So maybe they only work on 2 Saturdays or 3 Saturdays being a month, You can set that up also. So what shifts do they engage in? Do they engage in morning shift, afternoon shift, or night shift? Sometimes it could be morning shift, So if it's just morning shift, then you can just select morning shift. If it's just afternoon shift, you can select morning shift and afternoon shift. If it's morning and night, you can select morning and night. It's morning, afternoon, and night, But when you click on submit here, when that happens, the system now presents a list of times to you so that you can set up the resumption time. So if I click on submit, let me just select morning shift and I click on submit. So you can see that I have a list of timing and timeout for each of those days. So I'll manually set the time when they're coming on every day of the week, for the morning shift. So when they be coming on Sunday morning, Monday, Tuesday, so I've set this up. So if I go back and I select morning and afternoon and I click on submit, you see that I have a wider list. Then I'll call that both morning and afternoon, and if I do the same for night shift as well, you can see that, and I have a month receive list, that shows when they're coming on all of those times. So once I set this up, this now define for that group, so I can now select, create a payroll staff and now put them in that group, and then they will automatically assume all the parameters that I've set for the group. So you can see here I have a general staff which come in on the in the morning, and we've set up the timing. You'll say they're coming 9 to 5 every day. They don't come on Sundays and Saturdays. And I also have this shiftable, and they're coming morning and afternoon. You can see the times, that I've set up for them. So it is well set up, the attendance group, So let's go to, I think, payroll staff now. So now we know what this function means. Attendance group, we know where to set it up, and then the bank account, we also know where to set this up. So when you're registering a payroll staff, you need to select from the list of list of staff. So let's say I'm selecting this Peter Tololokwe, for instance, now, and then I can just select what group they belong to. So if I select no attendance, that means that this person would not have any deduction that is related to attendance at all, because what the system does is our system can integrate with most attendance machines. So if you put somebody on that no attendance, it means that they will not get any deduction when they come in late or they're absent. The system will just assume that they are. So this will be maybe top level management staff, people that their work is that they don't require no attendance anyway. So you can decide the criteria for putting somebody in this group within your business. But the system is not constraining you to automatically put everybody on their attendance deduction, just because we have it. So you can select which attendance group they belong to. Say, let's say this is the general staff. If I enter an account number, if this enter the account number, and then I can select if bank, where they get paid from. So I'll set up the allowances as well as we have the basic allowance, housing, extra allowance, things like that. Contributions, these contributions is like your deduction, and then we have pension deduction. So the system has an automatic pension deduction, So if you set a pension deduction here, if you put a value here, it will overwrite that automatic deduction for them, So you want to leave this at 0 if you want to use the automatic pension deduction. And then we also have the transport allowance, miscellaneous allowance, security deposit, things like that, tax deduction. And same thing goes for tax deduction, just like the pension deduction. The system has a way of calculating the payee tax, So if you put a value here, this will override the calculation, from the system. But then if you leave it, if you want the system to calculate the tax automatically based on how much they get, then you want to leave this blank, so that the system can handle that for them. And that's if you want to use it, because they have the option when you're trying to payroll to set the system to calculate tax and pension. If you don't want it, you can set it up. You see that when we get to the payroll end. So this is after you set up your payroll stuff, So we can now start. Before we get to payroll, let's look at some of these other functions, that we have under payroll. So I'll start with this one. Let's call work free day. So this work free day is more like a leave management, Just give them a day when they are allowed not to come to work. So somebody is asking for a particular day and say, this day, maybe I need to go and take care of my grandma, or I need to go and get engaged, things like that. You can just give them that payoff. So the way to do is just to click on the add work free day button. You select the respective staff. So don't forget, you can actually give this to all of your staff at the same time. So if you're giving it to all of your staff, you can just give it to them. Maybe it's a general holiday when they don't have to come to work, so that the system does not charge them for being absent on that day. You can just set this up. So you can select a particular staff and then enter a reason for the work free day. So I'll just say sample reason, and the number of days. So I can set the number of days that I want them to, but it starts from this, then it gets to this expiry date. So the way it works is, if I set number of days now, I say 1, and I set an expiry date, I'll say the end of this month. So what that means is that they have 1 day that they can be absent, but they can use it anytime before the end of this month. So that means that by the end of the month, this free day, if they don't use it, whether they use or not, it expires. So they will not be able to use it after the end of the month, So, but then I can say that I want this to be on a specific day. So maybe the person has asked for this holiday for next week, Friday, that is the 16th. Once I click on 16th, I can now use this specific day, to specify that this is just for that day. So they are not at liberty to use this free day any day of the month. They can only use it on that specific day, because I said this should be specific date, So if I remove this specific date, the number of days will also come into effect. So if I select specific days, I can only put in 1 as the number of days, because now you're saying this is a free day or a leave of absence, for a particular day, So it can only be 1 day. But then if you remove this specific day, you can now decide to put as many number of days as possible here. And then you can use this to also set up maybe your annual leave allowance for your staff. So what this means is that maybe for the year, you want to set it up so that they have maybe like 20, 25 days or 30 days that they can be absent, from work, So you can just set up this number of days, maybe 30 days or so, or 25 days. And then you can now set maybe this to be the end of the year. You can say, okay, so this ends by 31st of December. Or I don't want it to end by the 31st December. I want it to end by 15th of December, depending on when you want it. So this allows them to have 25 number of days when they can be absent all through the year. So you can set this up from the beginning of the year and give them that number of days. So that means that anytime a staff is absent, the system will check from this whether they have enough free days. When it checks for this, whether if they have enough free days, the system will not charge them for being absent that day. We'll just take it from their leave allowance, and we continue to do this until they exhaust the number of days that they're allowed, and then we'll now start charging them for being absent from work. So the work free day actually serves two purposes. You can use it to give leave allowance, or you can use it to give number of days, within a specific period, or you can give a particular day and say, on this day, you can be absent from work. So that's how the work free day works. So I can just go ahead and add one. I would say for this staff, let me give the staff just one day and say, let me just say sample, and then I'll say 1 day for the 16th, just like I did, and then specific, and then you can see that they have a number of days. I can add as many. So if I had for another staff, say John Smith, for instance, so I can just say maybe I give them 2 days till the end of the month. So no specific, and you can see how this now works. So it gives them number of days in, days out, and then what is left. So immediately this gets to the expiry date, the system takes it off and they are unable to use it. So that is that about work free days. So I think the next thing in the list is so we'll skip the payroll stuff because we have already done it. We'll come back to it where we talk about assigning shift. And let's go to staff loan. So staff loan allow you to give loan to your staff, like cash advance, things like that. And then you can specify installments, So you select a staff, you enter the amount requested, enter the installment. So if they request 100k and they want to pay maybe 20k installments, you can enter it. And then the value date. So the value date is the date when they want the money will be deducted. And then we have the effective date. Effective date is the date when they start deducting from their payroll. So what this means in essence is that they get some money from you in advance, and every time you compute your payroll and you're about to pay them, the system will deduct the installment from their account until they finish paying that amount. So that is what this staff loan is for. So I'll go to the next one, which is payments and deductions. So these payments, bonus and deductions, bonus and deduction allow you to give outright bonuses and deduction to staff. So you give bonus when probably they've done something that is worthy of commendation and you wish to reward them, monetarily. So you can just add some amount. So if you want to add a bonus or deduction, just click on the button, you select the staff. So you can give this to all of your staff as well. So you can select a particular staff and enter a remark for the deduction that you're giving, the reason why you're giving this deduction, and then you select the type of the type, whether this is a bonus or it's a deduction. So bonus will add more money to their payroll value, and then deduction will take out of the value. So the bonus will be
when they've done something commendable, you wish to reward them, they get a bonus. Deduction will be when they've done something bad and you wish to punish them, and you can do a deduction. So if this is a bonus and you select bonus, I can also just select the value, let me just say 2005.
And the effective date. So the effective date now specifies what day what payroll this would affect. So if I select this month, so let's say I select the end of this month. So that means that when I'm computing the payroll for this month, it will give them this bonus. But if I select maybe any date in next month, you have to select the last date anyway. Any date in that month will suffice, and then the system would not give them during this payroll, but would rather give it to them next month. in next month's payroll. So I'll just select this month, just for an example, just for you to see. So, so I think the next thing will be to go through exemptions. So for exemptions, this allow you to give some form of exemption for either lateness or overtime. Now the system calculates overtime, so overtime happens when your staff decide to work, extra hours, So, but this is something that can be permitted by the administrator or by you as a business owner. So the fact that you have this payroll function does not mean automatically your staff can just come in and start working extra hours. No, it doesn't work like that. You need to at least allow this, So if you go under general settings, so update all settings, and you can see under payroll settings, you see that we have this enable overtime. So if this is not checked, overtime will not be calculated in the system.
But if it is checked, then you can have overtime for your staff, So, and for them to qualify for overtime, it means that time that you've set under the attendance group, the staff must come in on time and then do an extra hour. Do you understand what I'm saying? And that extra hour can be before the resumption time or after the resumption time. So
if a staff is supposed to resume by, say, 1 o'clock and close by 7 p.m. or 8 p.m., if they decide to, if you have overtime in place and they decide to come in maybe 2 hours before 1 o'clock, they can have that as an overtime, provided they come in that time before and they stay up until that 7 or 8 p.m. when they are supposed to leave, And the same goes for maybe somebody that is supposed to resume 7 a.m. and close maybe by 2 or 3, So they must come in at 7. So they can't come in at 8. Come in late, well beyond. They can't even come in late and now do an extra hours. And I expect that overtime is going to be calculated when it doesn't work that way. And this is deliberate because we don't want a situation where staff now start manipulating the hours when they work within your business. Because somebody doesn't come from this. You've set that resumption and closing time for a reason for each of those groups. And that's because that is what works for your business. That's how you are able to serve your customers, So imagine somebody who is supposed to resume by 7. Who knows that they can work overtime, now decide to come in by 9 and then work extra 2 hours. That is going to introduce some imbalance in your timing. Because if all staff decide to come in by 9, then there will be nobody to serve people by 7, So that's the reason why, if you want overtime, you have to work your number of hours, come in at your expected resumption time, and stay. You have to cover your normal hours, coming in time and leave when you're supposed to leave. Then you can now start considering having an overtime. So that's the way the system is. So if somebody comes
late, for instance, no matter how many hours they work that day, they will not get an overtime from the system. So exemption allow us to give them some form of exemption from overtime or lateness. So think of a situation where you've asked a staff to go represent you somewhere or to go do some business dealing somewhere,
and you know that this is going to eat into their closing. There is going to be over their closing time, and then they will not be able to come back to work, to come and maybe clock out or something. You can give them an exemption for lateness, because if you clock in, that means you clock in at the normal time and you don't clock out, the system still sees it as lateness, but it's kind of like an absence from work, so it's something like a partial absence, but it's still treated like a lateness. It's still the same figure that gets deducted, and the system deducts this figure per hour, and so if you want to exempt any staff from overtime or payroll, so you might want to exempt a staff from overtime if probably they've done something wrong, and as a form of punishment which has been agreed, they need to do an extra hours to make up for whatever they've done. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you might want to exempt them, because you can't set out to punish someone and then they're now getting more money, because of that punishment. So you want to add exemption for them. So the way to do is just to add, select the staff, enter.
A kind of remark. The reason why this is being done. This is done. So what are you exempting them from, really? So whether it's lateness or overtime, you can select, and then you have the effective date also, which will tell you, okay, it's on this day. So I know that you're going to represent the company on this day,
and you're going to be leaving from work, but then you come up to work. So that means that you won't be able to clock in. So I'll give you an exemption for lateness. So things like that. So you can add that for your staff. So I think we've covered all the extra bits. So we can go to payroll staff, So under payroll staff, there is something that you can do here, because there are situations where you manually set the shifts for every member of your staff. So you have this morning shift and afternoon shift, but you don't want the system to automatically calculate. By the way, the system has the ability to automatically calculate the resumption time automatically detect the staff shift based on their resumption time. So if you say a staff, if you set up a shift now, let me go to an attendance group just to explain what I mean. So under this attendance group, the shiftable one, when I select this, you see that the morning resumption is by 7 to 3. So the staff on mornings shift is meant to come in at 7 and then close by 3, while in afternoon shift they are meant to come in by 2 p.m. and then close by 10. So you can get away with automatic system assignments for this shit. So if the staff come in and clock in by 7, the system will automatically assume that they are in morning shift, and then the system would go on and then assume that they are in morning shift and then calculate accordingly. So their clock out is now supposed to be 3 p.m. So if there's overtime and they stay beyond that 3 p.m., then the system will now give them additional overtime, for staying up. But because they resumed at 7, the system just assumes. So, and this goes for maybe they resume 7, 8, 9. As long as the time is close to that resumption time, the system just automatically assumes that they are in morning shift. And the same goes for afternoon shifts. If the staff come in and then they decide to clock in at maybe they're supposed to come in by 2, but they clock in by 3 and by 1, or they clock in by 12:30, 12-ish, the system will just assume that they are in afternoon shift because that time is closer to a 2 o'clock mark. And then we just assume that they come in early, for their shift. So that is how the automatic shift assignment works, in the system. The system just try to see when you clock in, and then the system now adjusts accordingly. So that means that your staff can have coming in a day, and then it's flexible, so you don't have to go into the system and start setting up the shifts for your staff every month. The system will just automatically adjust, but there are some timing that can overlap. Maybe when you have morning, afternoon and night, you might want to consider assigning shifts to your staff manually, because especially when they are at night, the clocking is in the evening of the day when they are supposed to come in, and then they clock out the next day in the morning, so that the system does not get confused and start thinking that they're supposed to be a morning shift. So you have the ability to assign shift to people. Another reason why you might need to assign shift to people is when people are doing overtime, and then they have that flexible overtime within your business where
someone can just decide to come in early so that they can help the business and then make more money for themselves. So imagine a scenario where we set this up for 7 a.m. and a staff now decide to come in so a staff is supposed to come in the morning, comes in. So a staff is supposed to come in the afternoon, comes in, let's say by 8:30 or by 8. but they are supposed to come in the afternoon, but they've come in by 8, and then they now work till that time. Maybe they work till 10. They're supposed to come in by
afternoon shift. So the system might just assume that they are supposed to come in the morning, and because they come in at 8, the system will assume that they are late. They are late by 1 hour. Then the system will not give them the overtime that they are due. So this person is actually supposed to come in by 2. They are supposed to come in for afternoon shift, but they felt like, I'm not doing anything at home. I can as well. Maybe you've made an announcement that, oh yeah, you're short staff, and then maybe on a day when you have traffic, and then you want to have as many people as you encourage them to come in, and then this person decides to come in by 8. So if they come in by 8, the system might assume that they are supposed to come in by 7 because of the clocking time, and then put them on morning shift automatically, and then assume that they are late for the morning shift and will not give them that overtime that they are due. So in that case, you might want to manually set the afternoon shift for them and say, oh, this person is supposed to be on the afternoon shift. So that will override the automatic assignment that the system does, and then the system will just go with whatever you've selected. And the way to do that is to come under payroll staff. So under payroll staff, you can now right click and select update shift. So you see this kind of calendar, so you can select the person, select the shift that you want to give. And so let me select somebody who is in a shiftable group. So I say update. So I can say, oh, I want to assign morning shift, and then I can select the date I want to give them morning shift, or I can just select and drag across. So if it's afternoon shift as well, I can just also do the same. And this also allow me to assign off days. Do you get? So this will work for people who don't have work free day. No, we don't have, and I don't want to be setting up. So everybody works every day of the week, but we give them certain days, and then there's a monthly roster where we select when your off day is going to be. So the off day does not follow a regular pattern. We just decide, and this is your own off day today, this is your own off day today, so we can come here. So if you want to have complete control over your shift management and all that, you can do that. Do that from here, So that is the last bit of setup before we go and generate the payroll. So once we've had all of this set up, then we can go to monthly payroll to generate the payroll. So to generate the payroll, just click on this button and then payroll will be generated. So you can see this, which allows you to generate the payroll. Now, before I generate the payroll, you see this button that says attendance logs. So this is where you have the opportunity to add the attendance logs, So the way we integrate with machines, because most of these machines are made in China, and connecting them real time is always a pain. And so we've decided to just use this method. So what we've done is that you can go on and clock in and clock out with any of the devices. We've integrated a couple of devices, so your staff can go on, clock in and clock out on the device. Then afterwards, you can now connect a flash, download the attendance log from the device, and then have it uploaded to the system, and then you can do this upload at any time, as long as you do the upload before you start calculating the payroll, so it will take effect. So if you want to upload the attendance log, just click on this, and then you can select from some of the devices. Now, what differentiates these devices is just the column where they have some of the information, in the Excel information. So most of the device will give you maybe like a tab delimited data, or a CSV, a comma delimited data, which contains some information about the clocking, clock out, the timing, and all of that. So there's an identity for each of the staff, which the system uses to match the stuff. So for you to be able to use the attendance, you need to make sure that the attendance, so when you come under HR staff, so you need to make sure that this attendance ID matches the ID that you're putting on the attendance machine. This is very important, because that is how the system matches the record, the clocking record. So you want to make sure that now we've let this open because we used to have this automatically generated, but we've left this open so that you have control, because there are some devices that would not allow you automatically set the attendance ID. So the ID on the machine, basically that's what we're saying. So if I'm editing these details now, you see that I have the ability to set the attendance ID, and this will correspond with any ID that you've had on the system. So if your device allow you to specify the ID, you can just use an automatic generated one from the system. If it doesn't, you can just register the staff on the device, get an ID, then assign it to them. So this will allow the system to use this ID to match the record when you upload the attendance record. So if I come back to this place, monthly payroll, and I click on this attendance, then you can now select the device, that matches yours. So chances are that you would have your device will work with any of this, So you can just try them, and if you have a device that does not work with any of this list, if I just get them across to our customer service, we will quickly add provision for that device for you. So once you select the device and you click on submit, then you go select the attendance log, and then you have the log uploaded. Then you can now continue with your generation. So when you're generating, you select the date you're generating for. So that's the month. So I'm generating for January because I don't have payroll for January, and then I can now select what I want deducted. So like I said earlier, you have the ability to select whether you want this deduction made, And so if you want to deduct tax, you check this, the system will automatically deduct tax. If you want to deduct pension, the system will automatically deduct pension. Yes, it will make provision for that pension in your tax, And if you want to deduct attendance as well, you can deduct attendance. So if I select all these three and I click on submit, the system now generates a payroll for me. Now, because I don't have attendance record, you can see that everybody's net pay is entering into a negative figure, and that's because there's so much deductions because they're absent. There's no day when they come in, but for in your own case, because you're going to have attendance record for them, they won't have this absence, and so this person actually, I think, is not under any attendance. So I can also say I don't want attendance generated, so let me just say tax, and then without attendance, and you can see that changes the figure entirely.
And you can see that the only thing that we have now is the tax deduction and the pension. So the way these tax deduction work is it uses the normal formula, the tax bands and all that. So if you find out that this doesn't work, or you might want to use the manual tax, you might want to assign a manual tax value. If
this figure does not correspond to maybe a recommended calculation from your accountant or so. But if there's a change, if you see that this doesn't match up, you can also reach out to us so that we can update. Well, we try to follow up with the current calculation, and then one of the things that we'll do is to add different calculations made short so that you can select the one that works for your business. But so far the system is using the payee tax in Nigeria to calculate this. So you can see that the system automatically deducts tax, pension and things like that. They have all the allowances. I could also generate and say I don't want any of the deduction, and then the system will just go on. So the only deduction would be probably maybe outright deduction that I given. So I set up manual tax deduction for this person. That's the reason why they have this. So that's the reason why they have all this. And so that's that. So once I'm done, then I'll save the payroll, and then the payroll will be saved into the system. So once I save the payroll is saved. So you can see payroll for January, and then I have the list. So you can see that we have pending as the status. So some of these other ones are approved and completed, So when you set up the payroll, when you create the payroll, you have it set as pending. And then at that time, you can look at the figures, check, some of those figures, and see whether things are fine. So you have the opportunity to also delete the payroll at that point once it's still pending. So I can regenerate the payroll. Let me add some deductions. I just want you to see some functionality. So once I save this and I click on this, you see that we have deductions for this person, and I can exempt them from this. So you can see this free. So this free means that they have this free day that I've assigned. I think I assigned 2 days to this person, and I gave an expiry date of the end of the month. So they still qualify, and then that's why they still have this work free day. You can see that they have this free day, so they don't get charged. But on other days they get charged, for being absent. But on these days they don't get charged for being absent because I've given them, allowance for that absence, and they can use it. So when the system used up the 2 days which I've given them, then we have additional deduction. Now all the other days are now deducted, but I can still outrightly ignore this. So if I want to ignore this, I can just click on this, and then the addition you want to encounter is absence from work on this day. It cannot be reversed. So once you click on this, then the system will just ignore it, and then there's a note added to it that it's ignored. So the one that is free, you see that the system put a note on it that this is from your free allowance, and then the one that is ignored means that I outrightly ignored this. So ignoring means that probably maybe there's an error on the system which you want to make up for, or the situation that led to their absence or their lateness on that, because you can actually ignore both absence and lateness, so what led to it, and then however you want to give them that grace for that day, you can just apply that grace, for them. So that is that about the generation. So once you are
certain that this figure is okay, then you can authorize the payroll. So I don't think you'll be able to print out any payslip from this payroll until it is approved. So if I go to accounts, payroll report, and I try to look at the payroll for January. Okay.
So I'm able to print out the payroll, so I can export this to Excel as well. So just for me to see what we have there, so this allowed me to be able to print out pay slips for my staff and all that, But then I think when I'm ready to finalize the payroll, so I'll use one of the payrolls that I've added into the system. So let me go to monthly payroll, and this is an approved payroll. So let me just say I want to confirm payment on this. So this is where we now tie the banks to the actual bank account that we have registered on the system. You get? So this allows us to specify, because it's an accounting part to the payroll, because payroll is an expense, for the business. And then when the system is making an expense, the system would allow you to select the account, that will be involved in that expense. So you're able to select the expense account. So you could have set up an account. So under account, so that's accounting and chart of account, you can set up an account, maybe like an expense account. So you can call it whatever expense, what you call it. You can put it under any nominal ledger and call it maybe payment, payee expense, things like that, or salary expense. So this is where we've set up the salary expense account that you saw. This is a salary expense account, so which we are going to be using for the payment of salary and record the expenses due to salary. So if I go back to the payroll and I try to finalize this bill, confirm payment, then I'm able to select the account, that I want to use for this expense, which is this expense account. So the expense account is selected. Now there is a corresponding, cash account that would show where the money is taken from, So for people under this bank, you can just have the account. So I can decide to select the corresponding bank, which is, GT Bank. I say GT Bank, this. And then for the First Bank, I can select First Bank, IBN, and then select the payment date, So the payment date is this day. I select the payment date, and that's it, and the system will do both the payroll bit and the accounts bit, so that it shows up on my record in the ledger, as an expense for that particular day, So So that's the part. So you can see where we now tie the bank under payroll to the bank accounts that we use for the business, So these allow us to also, also resolve issues. Maybe there are things that we pay out of pocket, maybe with cash and all of that. And then you want to pay from a cash account. So you can set up maybe no bank. You don't set up any bank account for all of those people. And then when you're paying from, you can say, this is paid from maybe one cash account that I've created, maybe like a petty cash or a salary advance cash, or from the cash book, you can just select from the cash book. This cash book is just the normal cash that you have from the system, and the system will record it that way. And you have liberty to actually select the same account for this. You can select the same account for both. If the money is coming from the same account, you can set the same account. The system would merge the figures, understand that, this is the only account involved, and then we'll put in the figure. Let me just put it into those accounts that I selected, and then finalize. So, and this goes on. So you can now see that the payroll is completed. So once the payroll is approved, I can't delete the payroll. You can't delete the payroll anymore. You can only delete the payroll if it's still pending. So, and then if you go to your transactions report, you also see the payroll, there. And you can also see this in your ledger. And this also shows in your profit and loss statement, So you see it in your ledger, so if we go to the ledger for the salary account, so let me say general ledger for the salary account. So I'll see the money,
the amount that is paid, for that payroll. So this concludes the payroll bits. So if you had any additional questions, if you require any information, you can reach out to Customise service. We'll be happy to give you additional information. Thank you for your time.